Only the best go 3 abreast.
It is showtime at Williams Grove Speedway.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here at Eldora Speedway, it's showtime!
You got 'em 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the world of Outlaws.
It's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy because, ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime!
Set to do battle for 30 laps. The green flag is waving.
Hello again. It is Wing Nation presented by Sage Fruit. Talking sprint car racing, our favorite time of the week, and we are so glad that you have joined us. Steve Post, joined as I am each and every week by Erin Everham. Hello, Erin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. So you had Amelia Island this weekend.
Yes.
How was hanging out with the wine and cheese crowd? Everything good?
It was great. It was a very fun weekend. We had a little rain, which is not ideal for a concours.
Yeah.
But fortunately, the judging got done, and by the time people started to cover up their cars and try to pull them out of there, they still had a really good turnout. So it was a really fun weekend. They honored Mr. Hendrick this weekend there.
Oh, wow, cool.
So Ray did some emceeing of events and panels, and we had some cast of characters from our NASCAR world that were there entertaining, like Gordon and Schrader and Terry Labonte and Ricky Rudd was there, and Schrader telling stories, and Dale Jr. came. So it was a really fun time, but I'm slightly exhausted.
Yes, slightly exhausted. Well, the good news is when Ken Schrader's involved, I'm sure like when 10 o'clock rolled around, Schrader was like telling everyone, okay, I want to go back to your rooms now, get a good night's sleep, right?
Oh, yeah. There was no let's have another. That never happened. No,
Schrader. Schrader is sprint car through and through.
Yes.
I mean, I know that's where his roots are, and he's done everything since, but you could tell he's sprint car through and through.
Oh, yeah, he was even talking the other night about how he just raced somewhere, of course, and he said he made $350, and Mr. Hendrick was just shaking his head like.
Yeah, absolutely. That is cool stuff.
Yeah.
Really, really neat stuff. It really is. I did Asphalt Modifieds, Florence Motor Speedway, and the place your mama warned you about, Cherokee, for the dirt late models. Before we get started, though, look at this. I've got a gift for you, okay?
Oh, nice.
And I think you can see it. This is Bill Baylog.
Wow.
Anderson's maple syrup.
Own branded bottle. I like it.
Yes, I love it. Yep. So Bill Baylog, Anderson's pure maple syrup. They sponsor him, of course. Steve Anderson. I've known
wow.
Steve. Yeah, you got 2 bottles.
2 for me?
You're going to be two-fisted.
Well, I was telling you before we started the show that we had a little shortage of syrup this morning for Kate's Waffles, so thank you.
We got you covered with that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Steve Anderson is just one of the coolest people on the planet. And I got to know him years and years ago, and they have a product called Pure Fuel, and it's a pouch. It's like 1 ounce, 2 ounce, I forget what it is, but it's pure maple syrup. So my running journey, you put all these gummies and goos, and you don't know what's in these gummies or goos. This is pure maple syrup. You just throw the top off the pouch and you take a hit of maple syrup. And so they sponsored, they sponsored me with my half marathon a couple of weeks ago, and he sent some stuff. And I said, Well,
thank you for sharing the stuff.
Absolutely. The stuff, the good stuff, the Anderson's pure maple syrup, and Bill Baylog running with the World of Outlaws this year, which is exciting as well. Let's get into all of the topics, and we have got a lot of ground to cover. We mentioned last week in these hot topics that there was a lot of mystery and murkiness with the ASCS. There's still some murkiness, there's still some mystery, but there's no mystery as to who is running it, who is operating it. The World Racing Group has done it. We had Brian Carter sitting right in that seat in October, November last year, right around November after World Finals, and he said one of his concerns was about feeder series.
Yep. How
teams get to, and it was in the apparent, which turned out to be the case, loss of the All-Stars. Yep. And Brian was like, we need something between weekly racing and World of Outlaws. And so we don't know where this fits, but we do know that the World Racing Group now owns ASCS.
Yes.
So stay tuned. This has been real murky. I just feel like at least we don't know what this is going to look like, but at least we know there's some pretty solid hands on the wheel.
For sure. And I think we know we needed that. And Brian talked about a feeder series. Just like you said, you can't, it is very hard to go from weekly racing to the World of Outlaws. There needs, ASCS, I know it's 360s, but that national tour gives you a taste of that, how difficult and demanding it is to live on the road and work on your cars on the road.
Well, you look at what that gave us. That gave us Jason Johnson.
Yeah.
That gave us Aaron Reitzel.
Shane Stewart.
That gave us Shane Stewart. Sam Hafertepe, who we're going to talk to, actually. Sam picked up a win, and I said, let's talk to Sam because we can also talk about this ASCS deal. And just stay tuned. It's going to be interesting to see what that does for the national tour, but I'm also fascinated what it does for all the regional tours as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And I can watch it on Dirt Vision now.
We can watch it all on Dirt Vision now. There you go. So Jeremy Elliott had this yesterday. One of our buddies is back. The Madman, Kerry Madsen. 40 to 50 races in the Midwest, partnering up with Tony Vermeer. They raced, Kerry sat in that car last year after the whole driver shuffle thing and ran well, picked up a couple of wins in that car. But they're going to run 40 to 50 races in the Midwest.
Yeah, that's a solid schedule.
Yeah, so really cool. Always good when Kerry Madsen's at the show, at the race. So Kerry had 2 wins last year. He picked up a weekly show at Knoxville and All-Stars, but remember it was just a couple of years ago, 2021, when he jumped in the second Tony Stewart car and picked up 3 World of Outlaw wins, including like the prelim night for the Jackson Nationals and some other things. He had a couple. So the Madman's not done, and he was pretty stout in Australia this year. Got to watch him a little bit in Australia. So good to see Kerry being back. And Tony Vermeer, of course, runs the 55 car. Chris Wyndham is driving that on the High Limits Tour. So this is kind of it's kind of like, okay, a second program, and Kerry described it in Jeremy's story as a startup. Yeah. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens. Fun stuff. When we look at race results, Sunday afternoon, the fabulous Lincoln Speedway, Anthony Macri. Erin, I did not realize there's the pass. You can, if you're watching video on Facebook or YouTube, he had a pretty good battle with Kyle Moody. Moody had a really good run. Moody has hired Kirk DeWeese to wrench the car this year. So they want some experience. I was talking to Kyle's dad, and Kyle's dad's like, I think Kyle's doing good, but I'm not sure we're doing good with the car. And so they got Kirk DeWeese wrenching on it, and they had a really good run. They came up behind Macri there. They were right on the Macri. But it was his last win was in July before the family split, Erin.
I didn't realize that until I was checking through notes. I thought he had
they had some really close races the end of last year where they nearly won races.
A second or something. Yeah,
they did, and they were second at one of the Volusia nights.
Yep.
So I mean, the good part about it is that this is now that kind of chapter is over, and now does Anthony Macri become Anthony Macri June 2023?
Yeah.
Because if he does, button down the hatches. So fun stuff. Moody was second. Danny Dietrich was third. We mentioned Sam Hafertepe Jr., the ASC, and we mentioned the ASCS. They have a 410 tour down in Texas, the Elite Outlaw Tour. They raced at Kennydale, Texas. Noah Gass picked up the win. Yeah. Good to see Noah. Noah's one of those guys that went out and tried to get his teeth kicked in with the World of Outlaws and is now going to a true outlaw schedule. And then Saturday, it was Sam Hafertepe Jr. Erin, the numbers for Sam Hafertepe are staggering.
Yeah.
With ASCS.
Yes. It was a 75th ASCS victory with 11 different regional series.
That's insane.
That is.
I mean, that's just like if you run an ASCS regional series and Sam Hafertepe pulls in the pit, it's like, what are we doing? I mean, we know, and Sam's great. Sam is like I said, we're going to talk to him. So, and then finally this, last night, World of Outlaw NOS Energy Drink Sprint Cars at Volusia. Donnie Schatz.
Back in victory lane.
Yes, indeed. Erin, 500th career sprint car win.
That is awesome. And 312th World of Outlaw win, and 24 of them at Volusia.
He was rolling.
Now
he had some help. Buddy Coulthard was leading. Buddy cut down a left rear. But Donnie, it was fascinating in victory lane. He talked about wheel spin and he talked in his dash draw about wheel spin too. And how the left rear is a lot of times more impacted by wheel spin than anything. And he was, and Jacob Allen had a left rear go down too.
Yeah.
There's so many cool things about this. One of the really cool things, this is a people business. And so when Donnie wins, I always shoot my buddy Chuck Sinks with Sage Fruit a note. I said, hey, congratulations, your guy Donnie won. And Chuck sometimes is watching. Sometimes he's at some show somewhere, a fruit show, a trade show, or whatever it is. Sometimes, though, Chuck has a better view than we do. There is Chuck and his beautiful wife, Brenda, in victory lane with Donnie. And that just makes me happy. Yeah. Chuck Sinks, and we've talked a little bit about Chuck here on the program, just one of the kindest, nicest people on the planet. And they were there last night to celebrate in Victory Lane. And his wife, Brenda, I've done dinner with Chuck and Brenda a few times, and they're just wonderful people. So really, really neat. Talking about this World of Outlaw event. Did you see any of it or not?
I only watched the highlights, yeah.
Aaron, there was people everywhere. The crowd was huge.
On Monday night.
My premise on this is they tie into Bike Week. And 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Brian Carter sat in that chair and said, we're going to try to find these type things we can tie into to introduce new people to sprint car racing. I wonder what percentage of those people last night, and one of the other things they did too, we have NOS on Sheldon's car, but Monster, their sister companies, their parent companies, Monster does a lot with Bike Week, and Monster did a lot of cross-promoting with this. And I just saw that huge crowd, and Bike Week is people from all over the country. I wonder how many of those people in the crowd last night got their first taste of World of Outlaw sprint cars, and when they got back to their hotel, their condo, or wherever it is, let's find out when they're coming to our track.
Yeah.
I think that this was, and you had, and you have a historic win with Donnie Schatz. Now, granted, the track stayed fast. It is we all like 6 wide coming to the finish, slip sliding around. But I'm telling you, if you've never been to a World of Outlaw race and it's a juiced up racetrack, that speed has got to get your attention.
Oh yeah, it does.
So,
especially at a place like Volusia. Volusia is
If
fast.
you've never seen the World of Outlaws and you see them on a juiced up racetrack, you don't necessarily need 3 wide coming to the finish or photo finish. You need to see them go through the corners and not
lift.
Not lift and just keep going.
Yeah.
Donnie talked about how it was an intense race.
Yeah.
But Donnie's on the chip. Donnie is on the chip, and we'll talk about this as the year goes on. We've talked about Gravel and Macedo and these guys and everything like that. There may be another one we need to look at when we look at big picture World Outlaws this year.
Yeah, I would agree.
Donnie is on the chip. Fun stuff, great stuff last night. Kudos to everyone for got rained out on Sunday night, but man, if they introduced a couple hundred people or 1,000 people or 1,500 new people to sprint car racing, and you can get a bunch of those at your racetracks, that is going to be great. So good stuff for sure. And congratulations to Donnie Schatz, win number 500. Man, oh man, can you imagine that? We're going to step away. When we come back, Sam Hafertepe Jr. joins us on the Sage Fruit Hotline.
Tony, do you even remember how to drive one of these?
It's not something you forget. You should know that. The drive to succeed, the need to win, the desire to be a champion. And we surround ourselves with partners that believe the same. Like Tony Stewart Racing, Sage Fruit strives to be the best in all they do. They work hard on the farm, in the packing facilities, and with their retail partners to provide high-quality apples and pears all year long.
You can compare apples to apples, but nothing compares to a Sage Fruit apple. Winning quality in every bite.
Welcome back. It is Wing Nation presented by Sage Fruit, and let's go to the Sage Fruit Hotline. Joining us fresh off from a trip to Victory Lane, his second win of the 2024 season, Sam Hafertepe Jr. joins us. Hello, Sam. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to be back on with you guys.
Great to catch up with you. We've got a lot of ground to cover, Sam. But let's start with Saturday night down there in Texas, Kennydale Speedway Park. Tell us how you got that win on Saturday night.
Well, we got a good draw for the heat. Started front row outside, and won the heat, so that put us in the redraw, and we redrew the 2, and we got a I don't know. They didn't call the jump on the start, and the leader got about 2-3 lengths on us on the start, but we were able to run him back down, and we actually faded to third and run him back down and got to second, and then passed the leader, and then basically led the rest of them. Not a lot of chaos going on for us.
Sam, your 75th win with the ASCS. I know as drivers you don't sometimes keep track of those stats or make a big deal of them, but that's pretty significant. Just tell us your thoughts on getting to that milestone.
It's neat. We've raced a lot of, national races and regional races and things of that nature. So, it's neat to achieve 75 wins. you never know, like when I started racing, where how many races you'd ever win, or if you'd ever win any. You just don't know, and we just kept putting the same effort in my whole career, and there's luckily we've been able to win 75 of those.
Yeah, neat stuff, that's for sure. This racetrack, Sam, a racetrack that you're going to see again this coming weekend because the World of Outlaws roll in there. Tell us a little bit about Kennydale Speedway. It's one of those tracks not a lot of us are familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, most tracks in Texas, obviously everybody thinks everything's bigger in Texas all the time. Most racetracks in Texas are all a lot of quarter-mile bull ring stuff. So it's just your kind of standard quarter-mile bull ring. Semi-banked. It's a black dirt like Devil's Bowl. It's a really nice facility. They've got probably one of the nicer facilities in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Pretty top notch for this area around here. Like I say, neat racetrack for sure.
So, Sam, we mentioned the World of Outlaws coming to town. How nice is it to get a little warm up, a little test session, and obviously a win out of it?
Yeah, I mean, that was our whole goal. We were actually going to go run Volusia, and then, we saw these two races pop up close to home, and I decided, man, we're racing here next week with the Outlaws. We might as well go ahead and try to, get some testing in, and that's kind of what we did. I feel like I don't think we ever ran the same setup all weekend. We changed stuff both nights, every time we hit the racetrack, just to make some changes to see if we could get better and better and better every time, and I feel like we kind of achieved a lot of good things throughout the weekend, and like I say, the Outlaws, they travel really well, so it's good to try to get any type of knowledge you can before they get into town.
Yeah. We had somebody one time said that advantage I have will last through hot laps, and after that it evens up.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It really is. Sam, one of the other reasons we got you on, and we saw you win that race, and we certainly wanted to talk about that, and we certainly wanted to talk about Kennydale and that as well. But you're a 5-time ASCS national champion, and your stated plan this year was running most of the ASCS tour, less 4 races, I think, with conflict with some big 410 races. Your initial take on the change of direction with ASCS and the World Racing Group now taking over?
I think it's only good things. I think when you have an established group like World Racing Group take over, ASCS, and honestly, ASCS has probably been in their demise for the last 5 years. I would say just being harder to book shows, and maybe some. Not the competitors that they once had. A lot of things kind of making it hard for them to book races, and hard for them to make point fund and everything. So I feel like with World Racing Group coming on board, I think it gives a breath of fresh air to ASCS, and hopefully it gets it going in the right direction, because there's a lot more 360 sprint cars in the world than there is 410. So I think a lot of guys were kind of scared at first because they didn't know what direction that World Racing Group would take ASCS, and I think their mind's in the right place. I don't think they're planning on getting rid of 360s anytime soon. I think that would be a dumb idea if they did try to do that, but I think it's a really good situation for a lot of racers, and like mainly the southern areas, all the way up to Missouri. I think 360s are probably heavier in those areas than anywhere, and I feel like with the World Racing Group taking over, I feel like they can use their name to get potential sponsors and really grow ASCS back to where it needs to be.
Sam, when we talked to Brian Carter last fall, he talked about the significant loss of the All-Stars in a feeder series. What are your thoughts on that? I think that the World Racing Group acquiring ASCS, it gives a chance to go, like we talked about earlier on the show, from a weekly racing to the World of Outlaws or high limit racing. That's a huge step. How important is a series like ASCS?
Oh, it's really huge. I mean, you can't just have World Outlaws and high limit without anything else, because if there wasn't anything else, the races would be pretty boring. There'd be maybe 20 cars every night. So being able to have these series like ASCS and like we had the All-Stars and Pennsylvania has its own region, and obviously Ohio has a pretty big region as well. But without all those other ones, there couldn't be the top series, and so it's really important that they keep this going and allow these guys to have a place to race, and it allows them to race at a higher level than a weekly level and be able to compete with the Outlaws a little bit better than they would if they were racing at a weekly level every week.
Sam, when we look at it, there was a lot has happened since you announced your schedule. Does this impact it at all? Are you going to stick with your ASCS national tour? And I think some dates are maybe changing. There may be some things moving around here a little bit, but is kind of your business plan and then a bunch of big 410 shows, high limits and Outlaws. Is that still kind of your game plan?
Yeah, I don't think anything's changed a whole lot. Obviously we don't really. We have the first kind of ramblings of what's going on with ASCS, but for me, there has to be a lot more information for us to entertain, maybe making our schedule more predominantly ASCS or less. We put on the schedule that we were going to run quite a few 410 races this year, and that's still our plan. And obviously ASCS still has a little bit more work to do to kind of get out to the racers exactly. Point fund and purse structure and things of that nature with scheduling changes. So I think everybody's kind of in limbo right now just because nobody really knows that schedule. But as far as our schedule goes, until we see anything else from them, we're still in the same situation we were before. Obviously, if some of those races aren't on their schedule now, then we'll fill them in with some other races. But, we're still about 40, 45, 410 races and 40, 45, 360 races as of now.
Nice combo, that's for sure. Sam, final question for you, and this kind of goes back to talk. We have Bud Kaeding coming on, and we always ask about the state of sprint car racing in California. And I referenced this a little bit in talking about Kennedale Speedway Park, tracks we're not familiar with. Kennedale has big races coming up. RPM over in Crandall, Big O Speedway, Cotton Bowl Speedway, all of these tracks. What is the state of sprint car racing? And it seems like you've got a big influx with high limits and World of Outlaws of a lot of 410 racing, and maybe we didn't have in Texas in the past. What's your take on where you're at down there in your home state?
Well, I think, with Devil's Bowl kind of being gone, I think it kind of opens up the area to, subject to having a lot more 410 races around the area. And honestly, I think this is kind of a trial run for everybody. I think, you've got the high limit coming in, you've got, the Outlaws coming in several times. I think it's truly a trial run to see, can the state of Texas handle that many 410 races? Are fans going to be, that loyal to 410 racing down here? I think it's an unknown for everybody, but, I think Kennedale is going to have a hell of a show. I think it's going to be a huge crowd, and hopefully that continues through all these races that they have down here. I think, obviously, I think the high limit shows are going to be big. I really truly hope it's a good thing going forward, because for me, obviously, all this stuff's close to home, and it'd be nice not to have to travel to Pennsylvania and all these other areas to have to race all the time. So I hope it's a good situation for us. I think. It sounds like it's going to be great, and we'll know probably 2 or 3 weeks in, how when the Outlaws get to like Big O Speedway, or when high limit comes to RPM, or we go out to Texarkana, just to see what it brings. I think it sounds like it's in good shape right now, and the buzz is big. So hopefully it shows the same come race day.
Man, I'm pumped up. I'm actually coming down for that Texarkana, Texas RPM weekend. Looking forward to that and seeing some Texas sprint cars. Sam, you have broken down Texas and ASCS so well for us. We're grateful to you for that. We're glad you're picking up wins here. Picked up your second win. Congratulations on that. And I know we'll talk to you again real soon. But thanks for joining us here on Wing Nation.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
There we go, Sam Hafertepe Jr. And boy, he really broke down Texas and ASCS really well. I'm pumped up about things. I really am. I think it's really, really cool. We'll see where he goes and see where Sam goes. Man, there's nobody finer than Sam Hafertepe Jr. I love Love getting a chance to talk with him. So let's do this. Let's step away. When we come back, we're going to move from Texas to the great state of California. Bud Kaeding, he joins us next.
Tony, do you even remember how to drive one of these?
It's not something you forget. You should know that. The drive to succeed, the need to win, the desire to be a champion. And we surround ourselves with partners that believe the same. Like Tony Stewart Racing, Sage Fruit strives to be the best in all they do. They work hard on the farm, in the packing facilities, and with their retail partners to provide high-quality apples and pears all year long.
You can compare apples to apples, but nothing compares to a Sage Fruit apple. Winning quality in every bite.
Welcome back. It is Wing Nation presented by Sage Fruit. We are rolling along, and so good. What was that, Kreger? All right. We've got our next guest. Let's do this. Let's go to the Sage Fruit Outline. Joining us from the great state of California, Bud Kading joins us. Hello, Bud. How are you?
Pretty good, guys. How you doing?
We are doing well. Bud, we lined you all up to talk about this weekend season opener. Well, that's already been canceled out, but we really appreciate you taking some time and just on the cusp of another season of racing out in California. How are things looking for your program? How are things looking in California?
Wet.
Yeah.
It used to be called the Sunshine State out here.
Yeah.
And they used to start racing out here in February in some of these places, but the way things have shifted and we get so much water now, we're just kind of in a holding pattern. We got canceled obviously this weekend in Hanford, and we'll see how things look for Chico next weekend. Looks like we got some rain at the beginning of the week, but maybe toward the end of the week it's going to dry up a bit. So I'm sure Brad and Colby and them guys up there at Chico are going to work to try to get that event in. So I don't know. We're excited to get back going again, though. That's for sure.
But I think every time we talk to you about the state of sprint car racing in California and how things are looking up and looking bright and a lot of race cars. But I wanted to pick your brain on your thoughts of the state of sprint car racing across the country, as things have certainly shifted this year with 2 national series. What is your perspective from someone who's on the West Coast taking this all in?
I don't know. It's tough to. I've seen this a few times throughout my lifetime. Back when I was a kid, when they started the USA, and then the NST and the NSL, and none of it stayed. The Outlaws have always been prominent and always been there. I don't know. I think maybe right now, there's a little more name and power behind the High Limit series, opposed to the other series that have come in. But the last couple ones that tried doing it definitely had some financial backing behind them. But it's just hard to beat that name, right? The World of Outlaws is synonymous. It's built this sport and built drivers like Steve Kinzer and Donnie Schatz and Wolfgang and Swindells and for the most part made Brad Sweet who he is as well. So I don't know. It's a tough question. Obviously the historian in me and the love of the sport, I'll always be a World of Outlaw fan and supporter for what I can do, but I also appreciate what Brad and Kyle and those guys are pushing for the sport. It doesn't matter if you're racing or working at McDonald's. Obviously, you always want to get paid more, and I think that's just the nature of the beast, and that's built in everybody. It doesn't matter how much you're making; you're trying to make more. So, if they can do things and it's going to make the sport better, then I think that's great. But I do feel like obviously we saw last night, and even with the High Limit race in Georgia, that it's I don't know if it's creating a divide, but the car counts weren't what I think they were if we didn't have these series split like they are right now.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see, and now to bring this home, I think it probably opens up some selfishly for you in California. Looks like does this add to your 410 race count out there with all of it?
With all of it, yeah. We went from probably having, at the most when it was just obviously the Outlaws, and we had, 5 or 6 Outlaw races at the end of the year, since they quit coming out here in the spring.
Yeah.
So now I think there's 16 more 410 races, and it's helping. It's driving the sport, driving some guys out of the 360 into getting 410s and doing more 410 racing. So that part of it obviously is making it better for everybody. I'm anticipating that our car counts and our full-time travelers with the NARC series is probably going to grow a little bit. I know there's some kids that are going to get into the NARC deal this year with Dominic Gordon. We got this Jarrett Sori's back full-time, and then but then again, losing names and talent like Dominic and Corey Day full-time is going to hurt a little bit, but it's also going to help guys like me that have been struggling running fifth and sixth. Now we're going to have a closer shot at winning races. Sanders, we still got him out here. He's tough. Neto's always tough when he shows up. Cole Macedo. I mean, there's talent everywhere out here. And I think you see that, I think every time you turn on an outlaw race or a high limit race, the California guys seems like they're washing the dashes up and washing up, quite a few of the positions in the top 10. So I think back to kind of the question with the 410 racing, as we're getting more of it out here, it's kind of driving a lot of guys back toward it, which is good, especially when we know it's split series. And I don't think that anybody out here is biased to one or the other. These guys really just want an opportunity to go race and race with the best drivers in the country, whether it be when they're here in August with the high limit or here in September with the World of Outlaws. Racing, the landscape of it's changed. When I raced or first started racing, and I had the opportunity to go to an outlaw race, not that I could have beat Steve Kinzer, but if I had the opportunity to be behind him, I'd try to learn from what he was doing and watch what he was doing. Where the kids today, they've learned it in go-karts or iRacing, and they would have been sliding Steve Kinzer. They're racing a lot harder. The intensity's a lot tougher. The race pace, as you watched last night, Donnie Schatz and Tilford, he said he'd never raced that hard, that long, at that pace, and that just comes from, the youth today and where the sport's going.
But it's funny that you started to talk about that at the end. It was actually where I wanted to head my next question about, we talk about the younger generation of racers right now. They do seem to race harder. I don't know if it's less respectful or they're just going for it or how you want to describe it. But where do you think that comes from? Is it learned in the outlaw carts? Is it, where does that style of racing come from? It seems like back in my day, and like you were just referring to your first races with the Outlaws, you wanted to earn their respect so badly. You were almost, at least I was, like almost cautiously respectful of them.
Yeah, right. I mean, we were students when we were racing. We were learning from the guys on the track. Where there's so many more tools today to learn your craft, whether it be, I know a lot of people knock iRacing and it's just a video game, but I know it's NASCAR, not a sprint car, but look at William Byron and where he's came from. It's definitely a good tool. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of the veterans in the sport look at the youth today as just a lot of spoiled kids, and they just crash it because it's daddy's money. And I don't think that that's all of it. I think a lot of it comes from the tools where they're learning, the outlaw carts, and even the 600 micros today. Those cars are all designed to be raced very hard. The way they rotate, they slide jobs. I went up to Delta Speedway to watch Brian Matterly's son that works here at our shop, Nathan, race up there. And them guys, it's intense. Shit, I'm glad I'm not racing those things nowadays. They're sliding every corner, every lap, whether it's for the lead or for 15th place. It's all the same race out there to them. And I think that's where a lot of the intensity in the hard racing comes from is the tools that these guys are given today. Where like when I started racing, or my brother or Gravel raced quarter midgets, and they put cones out there for you to run a smooth line, and there's not many smooth lines anymore. Watching some of these guys in qualifying, and you're looking at their lap like, God, they're not even on the track, but shit, they're still 0.3 quicker than you. What the hell is going on? So. It's definitely a big change and a big swing in the sport, and we've seen it a lot in California for quite a few years because we've had such a big group of young kids out here racing for quite a while now, where you haven't seen that in Pennsylvania or Ohio. You haven't seen how many 14-year-olds are racing a sprint car on the East Coast or the Midwest right now. where that's, you go to some of these places, that's 25 or 30% of the field is guys that don't have a driver's license yet.
That is crazy. I mean, that is, and accurate. I mean, when you look at it, and especially you look at some of those California bull rings and everything. So you've referenced, you know, you've referenced obviously Carson Macedo and Brad's probably a different generation, but you guys are losing Corey Day. What does California need to do? I'm comparing here. Pennsylvania, Freddie Raymer stays home. You know, Brent Marks, he kind of travels but kind of stays home. Danny Dietrich stays home. What do you guys, is this race count gonna keep some of this young talent around California?
I don't think so. I mean, if they paid $10,000 to win every night, I don't think it would keep people in California.
Really?
I mean, it's been like this my whole life. I mean, just as a kid growing up, you know, my dad, you know, he went on the road off and on. But never traveled the full Outlaw Tour. I think in '89 he was leading the Outlaw points up until when they were in Texas and came home because of family and business. I think, you know, I mean, I watched Paul McMahon leave. I watched Randy Hannigan leave. I mean, I saw Jason Myers leave, Brad Furr leave, myself, my brother. I mean, I don't know. I just think that, I mean, staying out here to win and to race out here your whole career is probably great, and he did it and made a great name for himself, a great living, and a great legacy. But everybody always, you know, kind of wants more, and he had the opportunity to go out and do it. He did it when he could, but he also had, you know, had family and business and stuff back here, and I think that's maybe what keeps some of us. That's why I came back home, was family and business. From being out on the road, I spent 14 years out traveling. But, you know, I don't know what would hold anybody, you know. I really don't. I mean, Corey Day, I mean, if you could ask him that question, he probably really couldn't tell you either. But, I mean, if you want to be the best, you're going to have to go out and win and compete against the best all the time, I guess, would be it.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. And I that's why I appreciate that your historical perspective is when you start bringing in Paul McMahon and Randy Hannigan and guys like that. I guess we're not talking a new phenomenon. We're just kind of talking the norm, basically.
But
yeah,
when you...
For sure.
go ahead.
No, I just, when I was a kid, I mean, Paul was probably one of my favorite drivers as a kid. I remember when the Outlaws were sponsored by Copenhagen Skull, and I couldn't go in the pits, but they were giving out like samples and stuff. I'd go into the grandstands after the races and fill my hoodie up with samples because, you know, that's what and I'd bring them all to him and he'd give me T-shirts. At this day, it'd be about $500 in Copenhagen or whatever it was. But yeah, those were the days. Yeah, those were good times. Obviously, we aren't going to have those kind of days anymore. They're not allowed in the sport. But
so
yeah,
you're giving Paul McMahon. You're giving Paul McMahon $400 or $500 worth of dip, and he's giving you a T-shirt.
Well, that's all you wanted then.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love it. That's good.
But you mentioned family and business and things that keep you in California. We talk about kids pulling big sliders and wrecking race cars. How's the family business going?
Good. I mean, I think I know with the economy and the way things you watch on the news, the way things are up and down, but I mean, we're staying pretty steady and pretty busy. There's a lot of stuff going in and out of the shop daily, but we're not making any more money. It doesn't seem like it. Just costs a heck of a lot more to do it, buy it and sell it. That's definitely the norm these days.
Yeah, no doubt. The 65th season of the NARC King of the West Tour, 26 races, 17 different racetracks, including the fastest 5 days in motorsports, 8 nights of racing in the Pacific Northwest, the return of Santa Maria. What kind of stands out when you look at this season in NARC Tour? What's got you fired up the most about it?
Speed Week has been fun the last couple of years up through Oregon and Washington. It's been a good trip. We always have a good time going up and doing it, but Santa Maria being back on the schedule is super cool. Always ran good there. My brother, he's won races there. My dad won his first sprint car race there, so
wow.
It was a place that we went to a lot when we were kids. It's right there on Pismo Beach. used to go out there for the weekend. My dad would be racing down there. We'd go hit the dunes or something before or after. So it was a really cool spot. Very excited to get back down there. I got a lot of friends that live in the area that have been deprived of sprint car racing for quite a few years now, and the way everything's heading, looks like we're going to get back down there at least one time this year, and hopefully a couple more times a year here in the future.
Man, that's exciting. Good stuff. Bud, we always appreciate your time and your perspective on all things sprint cars from your perspective out there on the West Coast. We appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you as the season unfolds. But thanks for joining us here on Wing Nation.
All right, guys. Well, you used to have me call in after we'd win races or win at least the 410 race. So hopefully we're
going to do that
phone call here in your future. That's for damn sure.
We're going to do that. I know that it's been a little bit of a dry spell. We're going to do that this year, though. We'll plan on that.
That's the plan. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it, and it's always a pleasure being on.
There we go. Bud Kaeding joining us on the Sage Fruit Hotline. So we do need to step away. Stay with us. More Wing Nation in just a moment.
Tony, do you even remember how to drive one of these?
It's not something you forget. You should know that. The drive to succeed, the need to win, the desire to be a champion. And we surround ourselves with partners that believe the same. Like Tony Stewart Racing, Sage Fruit strives to be the best in all they do. They work hard on the farm, in the packing facilities, and with their retail partners to provide high-quality apples and pears all year long.
You can compare apples to apples, but nothing compares to a Sage Fruit apple.
Winning quality in every bite.
It is Wing Nation presented by Sage Fruit. All right, Erin. So we've got Texas shored up.
Yep.
We'll see. I think Sam's perspective on that is fascinating. And, boy, a month from now, we'll know if this is working or where we're at with it or where we need to go with it. Sounds like we got California shoring up pretty well also. So a couple big states, looks like we got them in good shape with sprint cars.
Yeah, and those aren't states. I mean, California has always been synonymous with sprint cars, but Texas is not somewhere you've talked about as a hotbed. So it's great to see that both those are on the up.
To me, fascinating, and I did some notes on the NARC tour, and they do a good job. Jim Allen and his people put out some great information. They just do a good job. Now, when you look at this season, Justin Sanders, Justin Cox, Bud, Chase Johnson, a lot of young talent coming back. Listen to this list of drivers who are not running full-time on the NARC tour, but will be at some of the races. Dominic Scelzi, DJ Neto, Shane Golobic, Colby Copeland, Tanner Carrick, Sean Becker, Andy Forsberg, Willie Croft, Trey Starks. They're going to pop in here and there across the tour.
And they could win any given night.
Any given one of these races. Yep. And I think Cole Macedo might be running some also. But it just, I'll tell you, this King of the West series is just fascinating because of those guys that are going to pop in and out, because of the kids, because of Mr. Steady there, Bud, looking for another win again and to be there, and Justin Sanders, Justin Cox, Chase Johnson, these tweener guys that are super talented. I think it's going to be a fun year out there.
Absolutely.
I think it's really going to be exciting to see what happens. Fun stuff.
Yeah, and high limit races and World of Outlaw
World of Outlaw races and NARC and 26 NARC races.
Yep.
And then I think Peter's got some non-sanctioned shows at Hanford as well. He always has in the past. I didn't look at the schedule, but I'm assuming that's the case. So, man, I'll tell you what, good stuff. Good stuff, that's for sure. Speaking of good stuff, National Sprint Car Hall of Fame and Museum later this week. Bill Schindler, Larry Smokey Snellbaker, M.A. Brown, Ben Krasner, Rex Mays, Troy Ruttman. Today is the birthday of Dick Sutcliffe, 2001 inductee into the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. Started racing in 1956 around his home area of Kansas City. Knoxville Raceway, two-time champion. He is a 10-time starter in the Knoxville Nationals, champion at Olympic, Riverside, and Topeka, all in the Kansas City area, and inducted into the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. How about that? Good stuff. And the Sprint Car raffle continues on a Triple X chassis with a 410 Al Parker racing engine. Or you can get the cash option of $50,000.
Yep. Tickets, 10 for $25. And discount for even larger purchases. The drawing date is December 23rd, 2024, and you can go to sprintcarhof.com for more info.
Good times, good stuff. That is for sure. One sprint car place in Knoxville, Iowa. So There you have it, man. I'm all fired up. I'm pumped up about this stuff. Hey, if you like what we're doing on Wing Nation, do us a favor. Like, subscribe to our YouTube page. Share this on Facebook. Share it on Instagram. Share it on X. Do whatever you need to do. I got an email yesterday from someone, hey, where you at on MAV TV? We're not on MAV TV. We're on the larger YouTube platform. And if you're a MAV TV person, share that with your MAV TV people. YouTube is everywhere where MAV TV was and more, and YouTube is on your phone. So we've got you covered there. So, but I appreciate you sharing that and spreading it, spreading the gospel. We got some good stuff going on here with Wing Nation for sure. And speaking of good stuff, World of Outlaw NOS Energy Drink Sprint Cars, Erin, they're out at Kennydale, Texas.
They sure are.
Friday and Saturday night, new track for the Outlaws.
I always like looking. I until I watched the footage of Sam, I had never even heard of it really or seen the place. So it's always fun to see the Outlaws go to a new place.
Going to be fun, that's for sure. Who else is racing?
Central Pennsylvania,
well,
of course, obviously. Lincoln, and now we have the Port Royal season opener.
Woo, man, Port Royal season opener this week. I think Williams Grove season opener is next week. And then the week after that, I think I'm doing Phoenix this week. I'm home next week. And then that next weekend, my plan, if Mother Nature smiles, and I'll make the decision probably Wednesday of that week, Williams Grove, Port Royal, and Baps. That'll go with my Lincoln from last week. Man, I'll tell you what, we won't even be out of the month of March, and I may have 4 Pennsylvania sprint car races in. Pumped up about that. Great stuff for sure. Really, really cool. We're so grateful. Man, 2 really good, fascinating interviews with a lot of good insight. Sam Hafertepe Jr. and Bud Kaeding.
Yes.
They really brought good stuff. That's for sure.
They did. They both were very candid and knowledgeable. And
And this is one of the things I respect about Bud. It is so easy for a veteran driver to say, oh, these kids. But I think Bud is right. There are some of these, these kids. Okay, there's some of these kids that are just trashing stuff. But boy, he's right about this. There is a lot of tools.
Time.
It's a different time. Man, I'll tell you what, someone that I'm telling you, Landon Crawley.
Yeah.
Woo, Jason Size has got something there. I am telling. Now, I remember years ago, speaking of ASCS, I went to Memphis area and did a weekend of ASCS races. I showed up at Rivers. No, it might have been I-30. It was I-30. I got rained out at Rivers. I was at I-30. And I showed up, and I'm bebopping along. And someone said, hey, good to see you here. What are you here for? And I said, I'm here to watch ASCS race. And he said, take a look at Tim Crawley's boy. I said, really? And he said, he was running on 305. Said, the kid's got skills. And I've had a couple other people along the way. Tim Crawley's boy. And boy, I'm telling you what, he's showing really good. Put together a good race, a top 10 finish last night. He's been good early in the night. He was good throughout the whole night. And that's a skill. That's a skill set. And the fascinating thing to me is this is at Volusia. My understanding is the Memphis area doesn't have many big old half-mile racetracks. So when we get on some of these bull rings, I'm going to be interested to see what Landon does. So lots of young talent for sure. All right. Man, I'm just rambling now because I'm so pumped up about talking sprint car racing. But again, we appreciate Sam and Bud joining us. More important than all of that, though, thank you for joining us here this time on Wing Nation presented by Sage Fruit.